Hi Razak, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm streaming live now, so you can turn on your video. Okay, nice. Okay, so hi Razak, it's lovely to have you on the session today, and for everyone who is also streaming the session online on YouTube anywhere, good day to you, and thank you so much for joining us. Today on the session, I have Mr. Adekoya, who works with Sightsavers, one of the foundation's partners. And on the other hand, my name is Chinaya Kando. I work as a partnerships officer at the Tony Elumelu Foundation. And for us here at the foundation, we tend to look at our partnerships with Sightsavers as a unique partnerships, which was aimed at empowering young African entrepreneurs thriving with disabilities. And today on the session, I have Mr. Razak Adekoya, who works with Sightsavers, and we'll be having some form of discussion, an interesting discussion, promises to be enlightening, to be exciting, interesting, and engaging as well. So, Mr. Razak, over to you. Please, a quick introduction and maybe a brief overview about Sightsavers and what you do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to the Elumelu Foundation team. My name is Razak Adekoya. I work as the technical advisor for economic empowerment at Sightsavers. For those who might have not heard the word Sightsavers before, Sightsavers is an international development organization, and we have a broad vision to prevent avoidable blindness, that is from ensuring people don't get blind for avoidable causes, and also promoting disability rights. Part of our work around promoting disability rights evolve around education, citizenship, and political participation, and economic empowerment. And I think the economic empowerment portfolios seems to be the connection between Sightsavers and Elumelu Foundation, where we are very keen about how do we ensure meaningful participation, contribution, and benefits. Yeah. On that one, we're looking at how can people with disability meaningfully participate, contribute to, and benefit from their local economy. And we're doing that across different countries in Africa. In West Africa, currently we're doing that in Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, and Abidjan. I'm joining from Abidjan today. That's Côte d'Ivoire. Also, we're doing that within the East and Southern Africa and Central Africa in countries like Kenya, Uganda, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Malawi, Mozambique. Yeah, I think I cover about 7 countries in that region. Yes, and it keeps growing. It keeps growing. We are doing that also within the South Asia. Well, I'll limit it to Africa, considering the work of Tony Elumelu Foundation is also within the African region. Hope that's a good start, Chine.
It is. It's quite an in-depth because I thought it was going to be like a brief, but this was quite an in-depth overview, an in-depth explanation about what Sightsavers does. So, and thank you so much for that. I believe everybody who is listening right now understands what Sightsavers does and the great impacts that you are making. So again, my next question would be, how would you describe the partnership between the Tony Elumelu Foundation and Sightsavers in empowering young African entrepreneurs thriving with disability?
I think it's important to keep that in mind that the real change we really kind of want, and the work we're doing with Tony Elumelu Foundation, it's around the PPP approach, the public-private partnership approach. How do we work together to increase and accelerate, yeah, the inclusion of people with disability? I think the journey has been tremendous. We started we started like 2 years ago when our CEO signed that memorandum with the CEO of Tony Elumelu Foundation. And I think the journey is growing gradually. But what that does is that it's changing the narrative. The fact that people with disability cannot work, cannot this, cannot that. We're trying to change that narrative together with Tony Elumelu Foundation to see how do we ensure people with disabilities can also start, grow, but most importantly, survive their business enterprise. And I think we've seen a couple of numbers of young people with disabilities who are already starting and growing on that journey. We saw that within the first people who got their funds last year. And I'm sure another set of people were selected last year. They've started their business, they're growing their business. And I think in a matter of a few years, we'll see how the survival rate of those businesses, because that's quite fundamental, which is one area that we are really keen on, to see that as a result of the knowledge they've gained, as a result of the funding they've received, and as a result of the business advisory they get through the Elumelu mentoring opportunities, they're able to. Everyone, I mean, every entrepreneurs within Africa and many evolving and emerging countries have just 3 to 4 problems: access to skills, access to finance, access to business advisory opportunities. These 3 are kind of germane and fundamental in the whole conversation. I think we are bridging that to the relationship we have with Tony Elumelu Foundation, particularly for thriving entrepreneurs with disabilities.
Thank you so much, Razak. That's very, very in-depth. So to my next question, right, it would be, how would you, describe the role of partnerships such as this one in driving socio-economic growth and development on the continent?
I think the best way we kind of start looking at this is linking it to SDG 17. Yeah. Partnership is fundamental. And I think the point we need to look at is we would not have the entire resources
Definitely
to attend to the needs of different groups: women, persons with disabilities, refugees, and others. Yeah. And what we've done together with Tony Elumelu Foundation is bringing our funding together to co-fund young entrepreneurs with disabilities. And I think that's the point I was driving around public-private partnership. If you look at countries that has large population, for example, in Nigeria, for example, that has over, according to the data, between 20 to 25 million people with disabilities. If you look at many other countries, yeah, Kenya, Ghana, these are countries that have some kind of population within Africa. You realize that it's not going to be possible for one organization to make a change within the ecosystem. The best way we can do this is collaboration, coming together, bringing our resources, technical, funding, yeah, to be able to address those challenges. And I think that's what we've done with Tony Elumelu Foundation in the work we are doing. And that should be the next way most organizations should start thinking when it comes to the work of how do we ensure inclusion and how do we accelerate the work we are doing rather than doing it alone. You know, there's that statement, when you go alone, you go faster. You can go faster, but when you go together, yeah, you can go further. Yeah, I think that's what we're trying to demonstrate with the work we're doing with the foundation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Razak. So my next question is, what are some of the challenges that young African entrepreneurs who are thriving with disabilities, what are some of the challenges that they are facing? And how can organizations such as ours address these challenges?
I think if I look at it, I speak a bit around it, but let me talk from a point of challenge. So if you look at an average entrepreneur with disabilities, the first point is he or she has a business idea or an ideation stage. He or she needs the capacity. That's the point around access to skills. But the people who are providing the skills, either physically, do not make their physical environment accessible. In terms of the delivery, do not ensure the contents can be comprehensible for persons with disabilities. And even if it is online, do not ensure the online platform they are delivering those courses are accessible. The second point, and the reason to that is if you look at the application process, they forget the fact that they could be people with disabilities who can apply, so they don't even think about it. So the design process is kind of faulty. The second part to this, if you look at it, is even when people find opportunity to get the skills, then the financial institutions or organizations who provide grants do often think, if I give a person with disability, for example, a loan, the person would likely not going to refund it. And I'm kind of gone, I think because of the African myth and mindset, I can't go after him or her. We need to change that narrative. And we can use examples of the work we're doing with Tony Elumelu Foundation to start and other works we're doing to change that narrative that giving people funding or people with disability does not mean they are going to throw it into the bin. That is, they will not use it for anything tangible or impactful. Yeah, so we need to tell more of those positive stories to many organizations because it's one thing for us to also give people grants. It's another thing for people to grow. And at that level, they'll need different level of business financing of, choices to take, be it loan, equity funding, and many others. But the problem is we need to kind of deal with institutions, financial institutions, venture capitalists, and the likes who could kind of think through to ensure that they don't have this mindset. More of the problem is still mindset, and the whole narratives needs to change. The last point is that definitely there would be some disability specific. Yeah, so many entrepreneurs with disability, a good, very pretty example, an entrepreneur with disabilities who will go to the market to buy certain things or goods and services for him or her to be able to offer in his own locality. If you look at it compared to another persons without disability, their running cost, which is the operational cost, might be slightly higher. They will have to sell in and compete in the same market. What that means is that if a funding is given to them, it might take them a bit of time to kind of break even or to generate more profits or to grow. So businesses and organizations like yours who are providing funding needs to always consider this, and even financial institutions as well need to kind of consider this. Yeah, so I think those are the kind of challenges they do face on a day-to-day. And the work we are doing here, I think, is going to change that. If we can break the issue around meaningful participation, not just asking people to participate meaningfully, yeah, remove that ableism and tokenism, we will then start seeing them benefiting from the process and contributing to the local economy of their nation. I think that's what every organization wants to do in terms of how do we ensure more people can contribute to economic development of their local economy.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, it's understandable the challenges that entrepreneurs on the continent actually face. And then knowing that an entrepreneur is thriving with disability, an entrepreneur who also wants to scale or grow their businesses. I mean, we can't imagine the length or the extent of challenges that they are facing. So I think it's one thing that organizations such as ours have to consider, even organizations who are not considering this as well. It's an angle that they should also focus on understanding and knowing that there is need to empower entrepreneurs who are thriving with disability, and they have a role to play on the continent. They have roles to play in their different communities, and they also have impacts to be made. Thank you so much, Razak, for that. So on to my next question is, how do you envision the future of entrepreneurship for entrepreneurs thriving with disability, and what are the roles that partnerships can play towards this, this vision, towards realizing this vision for these entrepreneurs who are thriving with disabilities? What kind of future do you envision for them?
So first to the first part of your question around the future, we would not get a sustainable future if we forget or we leave certain groups behind. It's important. There is not going to be that sustainability if certain groups are left behind and certain groups are progressing. We need to keep that at the back of our mind. So as you think about sustainability and the future of economic development within Africa, we need to always envision a vision, where everyone is supported and most marginalized groups. What I've seen is that most organizations have paid a lot of attention to gender, which is good, and they still need to continue that. But we need to now start paying attention to disabilities as well. There are women with disabilities, there are youth with disabilities, there are refugees with disabilities. So think about it from different lenses. You will find people with disability in the midst of all different dynamics or intersectionalities you might want to think of. The second question you asked is that, please, can you repeat the second phrase of your questions just for me to respond?
Okay, certainly. So what role can partnerships and collaborations play in realizing this vision for entrepreneurs who are thriving with disability?
Where partnerships will play is no organization has an knows it all. So I want to do this. You want to do that. We're all looking at a vision where everybody more inclusive, more just, more equitable, more enriching Africa and the lives. The question then is, what resources can you bring on board? And that is what partnership help us to do. I might be able to bring in my technical resources. I could be able to bring in my networking, ability to broker links and the network that I have within a particular space. You might be able to bring in your funding, but you don't have the technical resources. So we need to then start thinking, what resources do we need to get that vision, to get to where we want to be? Who has those resources?
Razak, I think you're frozen. Can you hear me? Razak, I think you're frozen. Hi, Razak, you're frozen. Can you maybe leave and rejoin? Hi, everyone. Apologies for that. Razak will be rejoining shortly. Apologies for that. Hi, Razak. Welcome back. Can you hear me? Hi, Razak. Can you hear me? Hello, Razak. Can you hear me? Hi, Razak. Can you leave and maybe rejoin the call? Because I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Welcome back. I think you had
Apologies.
some. Oh, no worries. That's fine.
And can
I
you
think
see
you.
the video? Is it on now?
Yes, it is, and it's
Perfect.
very, very
Okay.
good. Yes, yes. Please proceed.
Okay, you can go ahead with the
Okay,
question.
so you were talking about how partnerships and collaborations can play in realizing the vision for supporting young African entrepreneurs thriving with disability on the continent.
Yeah, like I said from that last question, that when we need to bring our own entire resources together, when different organizations bring their expertise and resources together, partnership is the only way we can bring such resources together. Partnership is the only way we can accelerate the journey. Yeah. partnership and convening is the only way that we can be able to drive that sustainable development that we are all clamoring for. Yeah, and that's just the point I was trying to talk about earlier.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I was wondering, are there any projects or programs that Sightsavers is currently working on in terms of empowering more and more young African entrepreneurs thriving with disabilities?
Sure. We are collaborating with diverse stakeholders across Africa to drive the inclusion of people with disabilities, both in terms of employability and entrepreneurship. In Nigeria and Ghana, in Nigeria and Kenya, we have an IT Bridge Academy, for example, looking at the IT ecosystem, empowering young people with disabilities to kind of have the necessary tech skills. You agree with me, tech is high demand, and people have often think that, oh, people with disabilities might not be in tech. So you're supporting diverse group of not just people who are visually impaired, because people think, oh, your organization name is Sightsavers. No, we're doing that for pan disability. I just want to kind of clarify that. So they are learning different tech skills. That's in Nigeria and Kenya. But beyond that, we are also supporting women in the rural communities to start their own last mile retail businesses. We're partnering with other companies like Diageo and Unilever to kind of deliver those kind of work. Across countries like Kenya and Tanzania, we're supporting farmers with disabilities to be part of the retail, to be part of the supply chain of organizations like Diageo, popularly called Guinness, in countries like Nigeria and Ghana. In Abidjan, where I'm currently now, we're supporting young cocoa farmers to be part of the supply chain of private companies who are producing, who are making use of cocoa for different forms of chocolate. And we're also supporting women as well who want to go into the wage employment beyond entrepreneurship. And that seems to be the kind of different part of what we're doing. The financial inclusion bit is another work we're trying to do, increasing the acceleration of women with disabilities to be able to have access to finance. Yeah, and these are just some of the work and the projects we are doing. So we have projects in 12 countries in Africa, and it keeps increasing day by day, supported by different donors and different partners. But like I said, partnership is fundamental. And the more we keep collaborating, the better we can accelerate the journey and where we need to be when it comes to more inclusive and more economic advanced Africa as a continent.
Yes, certainly. And I must say, amazing work that Sightsavers is doing, protecting sight and empowering young African entrepreneurs striving with disabilities. So in the interest of time, I have a few more questions, just 2-3 more questions. And it's, what are some significant milestones that Sightsavers has recorded recently? And what are your future plans to advance your mission of protecting sight and fighting for the rights of people living with disabilities?
I think if you look at some of the significant milestones that we've seen, when we started our economic empowerment portfolio, not quite long, we thought it's going to take a longer time to transform the labor market to be more inclusive. But what we've seen over the period of time is significant. Some of those significant milestones include the rate at which we've increased the labor force participation rate of people with disabilities in their local economy. That is tremendous. The second part, I think, is the work we're doing around the IT Bridge Academy. That's never been done in any developing countries, where young people with disabilities can take courses like Cisco, the CCNA, which is Cisco Certified Network Associate, and get the kind of results they do get now. Over the past years, very few number of people with disabilities have ever passed CCNA results. But with our IT Bridge Academy, we are seeing a tremendous change. That's because we are changing the system, not the content, but rather the delivery of those content. We've seen what is possible and what else is possible. We are generating evidence and doing more of collaboration of what we call the public-private partnership. You can see the work we're doing with Elumelu Foundation, for example, and how that has the potential to cascade across different countries. And I think the last but not the least is our significant engagement with the private sector across the region. I think we've seen many private sector companies who have never strategically make the ambition that they want to have inclusion. We've seen companies making 3%, companies like Unilever saying they want to have 5% of their supply chain workforce. And that gives opportunity for entrepreneurs with disabilities because they can be part of those supply chain. We've seen companies like Diageo, as a result of the work we're doing and other stakeholders, making a public commitment that they want 3% of their procurement to go to entrepreneurs with disabilities. Yeah, and that's going to keep changing. We've seen financial institutions making a disability inclusion strategy across Africa because they want to change the work they are doing. This provides more opportunity for entrepreneurs with disability across Africa, across the region. And the more we keep breaking grounds and making these changes, the more we'll continue to see young enterprising and thriving and people with disabilities who are participating in the economy and their businesses are growing and surviving as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Razak. This has been a very, very interesting session and learning so much about what Sightsavers does and the impact you're making on the continent at large. Thank you so much for that. So on the other hand, I have a question pertaining this. What advice would you give to organizations interested in supporting young African entrepreneurs who are thriving with disabilities on the continent?
My advice for you is give it a test. Yeah, there are evidence. If you need success story, reach out to TEF, reach out to Sightsavers. Don't be scared. Then those narratives you have, they are wrong. That people with disabilities are they will waste the money. They cannot be productive. They cannot do this. They cannot do that. Trash it. They are myth. They don't have evidence. We have evidence to the fact that it works and it can work regardless of context. Yeah. And I think that's my advice to you. Start and see. You can start small and grow big. We've seen companies who start very small, and we've seen the kind of changes they make. So put the meat aside. Let's talk. Let's share evidence with you. Let's tell you what could work and what can't work as a result of our work across different contexts in Africa. I believe the most positive stories we tell you about this, the better you can start having a change in mindset about the inclusion of thriving entrepreneurs with disabilities. Lastly, yeah, and I will say this, lastly, more people with disabilities have been marginalized in the past. It's going to take a while for us to get a bit closer to the gender movement. So don't be frustrated that it's not working, no. Get the right advice, work with organizations of persons with disabilities, and we can only share experience and connect you where needed. Together, we can make that collective impact.
Thank you so much, Razak. So lastly, what advice would you give to aspiring young African entrepreneurs who are living with disabilities?
Dare to dream and dare to act. I think the problem with young persons with disabilities, particularly across Africa, has been the point that there's a point around the society has put too much of self-stigmatizing stigma story into them. And we are trying to say, no, you can't do it. So young persons with disabilities across Africa, or if you are related to such person, the first point I want to tell you is the society might look tough. Yes, it is tough to those who are not with disabilities as well. But you need to start. You don't need to perfect it. Start small, and you can grow big. Collaborate, learn, partner with also enterprising entrepreneurs without disability. Don't be scared. Take a journey, learn. Nobody grows today without falling, failing, or learning across those journey. Your ideas are important. You are productive, and you can change the narrative of millions of people. The world is waiting for you. So go out there with your ideas and change from your own community. Make the change from there. It's possible.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Razak. Like Razak said, dare to dream, and that stuck with me and it's going to continue sticking with me. So if you think you're different, you are uniquely different as a person living or thriving with disability and as an entrepreneur on this continent, you are exceptional, you are different, you are amazing, and you're awesome. And this is also like an official call for you all out there who think you can't to kindly apply to the 2024 TEF Entrepreneurship Program to get an opportunity to start up that business of yours or scale that business. On the other hand, it's also an official call to action to organizations, stakeholders to come on board and, empower these young, excellent, unique young African entrepreneurs who are thriving with disabilities, as they have so much to offer. We've seen this, we have evidence, we have the reports, we have impact that's been created from those who have been empowered in the past. And this is an official call to action to different organizations who are interested in coming on board to scale the work that we do. You can work with us, and together we can create more and more impact. Thank you so much, Razak, for joining this session. It's been enlightening, it's been engaging, it's been awesome. And I'm very certain that the audience who are streaming, who are watching this, they've learned a lot from you. They've learned a lot from the impact that we are creating. And I'm very certain that they will come on board. And young African entrepreneurs thriving with disabilities have been touched, and an impact or a shift has been made in their different mindsets. So you should dare to dream wherever you are and know that you can and you will do it. Thank you so much, Razak. And I would like to say thank you so much for joining this session. And I look forward to having more and more engaging sessions with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
Yeah. Do have an amazing day, and we'll connect after this. Thank you so much. All right, bye. Bye, everyone. Bye.